again and again. And it is heartening in the sense that some people are beginning to accept that reality and are genuinely asking now, what is the way forward? How are we going to get out of this mess? We are definitely stuck. 44 years of rigged elections and nearly 50% of our people living in abject poverty because of the decades of gross mismanagement, rampant corruption, and tyrannical rule. How are we going to get out? Well, here is one individual, Fred. You may not agree with his solution, but you've got to give him full credit for his passion in the search for a way out. We would like to discuss today some of the ideas that he's talking about. So we'll play a short clip of his video, comment on it, and then play another bit and comment on it. The most important thing to focus here is not so much that one must agree with him, but to accept that the need to search for a solution is now more urgent than ever before. So I'll play the clip and we'll comment on it.
Is there anyone in Zimbabwe or even in the diaspora who is Zimbabwean thinks that there is a political way forward to Zimbabwe? We hear every day, we need new leadership, we need new leadership, we need new leadership. 100%. But what is the plan to get new leadership? Zimbabwe like a tuck shop. What is the plan? What plan do you have to bring about this new leadership that is required? There were people that released Twitter comments, and we can't name them, and they were former CCC MPs who are now part of this fake Secretary General that came around, and there were hundreds of comments saying Mutenges, CIO, this and that. Now, for the record, for the last 7 or 8 years, easy, I've been saying that that person is a CIO, Mutenges. Sometimes you don't have to wear a badge that says Munu Mutenges. You can just see Nemaitre Munu Agamira say. Because there's two options when someone can't do their job effectively in the opposition. The first option is that that person is a mole, a CIO agent, someone who was sent to destroy the party from within. That is option number one. Option number two is the person is so stupid and so dumb that they do not know how to fulfill their role within the opposition. Both of those options should result in the person being removed. But this person was not removed for that period of time when I was calling him a CIO. He was not even voted for. He was actually appointed. Sakamuna haruku appointa ma CIO in this organization. So what is the plan going forward?
Well, let's stop it there, Ben. What's your comment on that one? Did we have an opposition that is competent, or we did not? We're talking of CCC here.
Good day to everybody. Thank you for joining us. You know, I agree with him to say, you know, and with you. Okay, let me answer your question. I would say we do not have a competent opposition. Why? You know, for years now, I think 24 years, we have had MDC, CCC, and all the other formations that came about, and they have provided nothing up to this day. There has been no change. There has been no reforms. There has There's absolutely nothing to write home about. And if I may correct Brett there to say, they are CIO agents. No, no, no. They're not CIO agents. They are greedy individuals. MDC Triple C is just a group of thugs also wanting a share of the spoils of war. And we have to realize this. I mean, this is evident. I'll give you numerous examples. They are mainly worried about, parliamentary seats. When elections are ruled to be, illegal, they are not free
Sorry, Ben. I think there's something wrong with your mic there. So I don't know whether you could log out and then log back in. But to carry on with what Brett was saying there, the main problem we tend to have here is we have had an opposition. I think the people's failure to accept that the opposition, the primary purpose, the opposition, the nation elected the opposition, was to implement the democratic reforms. And we have had MDC on the political stage since 1999. As the party name implies, the movement for democratic change. They've failed to bring about even one meaningful change. In 24 years and counting, including the 5 in the GNU. So as much as we would say we want change, we've got to realize if there's going to be change, how is it going to be brought about? The failure to define that is at the heart of our problem. We have failed to define what is it exactly we wanted MDC to do. And to fail to appreciate that in 24 years they failed to deliver any meaningful change is a serious shortcoming. And this problem has compounded itself in the sense that by failing to realize that MDC leaders are corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless, people have fallen into this trap of electing them again and again and letting them rule. How do you expect to bring about change when you do not have the right people to deliver that change? So I think the first point here that I would say to practice, people need to appreciate that the opposition itself, as much as he is talking about the Secretary General of Triple C, this guy Sengezo Savangu, the fact of the matter is Savangu has only come on the scene since last year's election. By that time, MDC had already proven to be corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless. The most telling point of MDC's failure was the failure to implement the democratic reforms during the 2008 to 2013 GNU. That is when they had their golden opportunity to do so. They failed to implement even one reform because they are corrupt, incompetent. And to keep on appointing and expecting miracles from the same corrupt and incompetent individual is self-defeating. So if we are serious about this, we need to address that problem. Ben, I don't know whether you can try your mic. I don't know whether you are ready now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. So I wanted to say, I just want to correct Brett to say, they are not a CIO agents. The Triple C guys, they're not CIO agents. These are just greedy individuals. This is evident when Sadak said that the elections were not free and fair and they were null and void. And they decided to go against that and take up their seats, which they named hard earned seats. It was all about the money. So, we cannot label somebody to say they're a CIO agent just because, they have not, delivered. No, it's greed. Greed has been the downfall of many, and including within the MDC, Triple C, and all these here, all alliances and everything that came about. It was just greed. This is why they keep participating in rigged elections, to line up their pockets, to get funding from the political act. So we cannot call them CIOs. We call them greedy individuals, corrupt.
Well, on that point, I think that is one of the points that we've highlighted. And in this particular case, David Coulthard admitted in his book that greed was the main reason why they keep participating in these elections. But nonetheless, that greediness could also be projected in terms of being bought off by ZANU-PF, because ZANU-PF is very good at corrupting. It has corrupted all the leaders at various levels by buying them off. So in this particular case, the fight for position is at the heart of the opposition's failure. And if one has got to look at it from the point of view of the GNU, they failed to implement even one reform because Mugabe bribed them. So when does one become a CIO, and when does one become greedy and corrupt and incompetent? I think it's a fine line. The most important thing here is that the opposition, as we know it, MDC, Triple C, have proven to be corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless. So the starting point, if we want serious change in Zimbabwe, is accepting that reality. I'll play a bit more of the clip, and then Ben, you can come in when we've played the bit and comment on it.
We have no representation in parliament to effect any meaningful reforms. Nothing, zero. And yet the plan going forward is a blue-colored political party for 2028. People say, Brett urukunonoka, Brett unongo hukura pa Facebook, Brett unongo taura ma video after video after video. Hey, at least I have a plan. What is your plan? Regai ndiyedze kutsanangurira kudai. Brett ari kuti ngatiite government in exile. Brett ari kuti ngatitore that government yotanga kureza ma funds and to create influence and awareness, and then use those funds to create a people-led revolution to remove the regime by any means necessary.
I'll stop there. Ben, do you have any comment on the blue trend?
I have been fearing, and it seems to be true that my fear is about to come to fulfillment. To say 2028, Chamisa is going to participate in the same rigged elections. Come what may, he is already preparing himself. He took a sabbatical so that the situation simmers down because of the previous lost election, the one that he claimed that he had all strategies to cover up the rigging, which he lied. And now that the situation has simmered down, he's willing to go yet another race in the same rigged elections. Nothing has changed, and nothing will change in the outcome come 2028. That's a fact. So it's we're going round and round in circles. And Chamisa is the one that he is taking us round and round in circles. And a lot of people are willing to go with him, sadly.
I have to agree with you on that point. I think earlier on we did mention that MDC, Triple C have failed to deliver even one token reform in the last 24 years, including the 5 in the GNU. Last year, Chamisa conned his followers into participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, as the quotation there we've just been showing you clearly states from David Coulthard. But he conned them, made them believe that he had plugged all the voting loopholes. Of course, he was lying. This is at the heart of the problem. If the plan is for this blue train to come back in, one is going to say this is no plan. I totally agree with Brett. We've been down this road before. We are going to be told again that we have got a plan to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections, when he has done absolutely nothing. The problem here is that we have got an incredibly naive and gullible electorate who will believe whatever they're told. There cannot be any meaningful change as long as we have got an electorate that is so naive and gullible. They'll follow blindly whatever they are told. So the blue train, to me, is no solution at all. And yet, I have to agree with you that at the present moment, while Chamisa is on sabbatical, many of his followers are waiting, twiddling their thumbs, waiting for him to tell them what to do, and they'll do it. That is not a recipe for change. That is just a recipe for repeating the same idiotic mistake over and over again. That is one of the tragedies of Zimbabwe. Ben, what do you think of Brett's own plan? Is that a viable plan?
It's far-fetched, you know. It's, you know, I don't see how that would work, you know. Having a government in exile and then fundraising. We've been fundraising for a very long time. All this here is just, I think, you know what? At the end of the day, it's better to do the hard way and the straightforward way. And you know, one other thing that I must emphasize is Zimbabwe needs reforms. Zimbabwe needs to reform its system. But there has been put, you know, in place a way out already. SADC, AU, the European Union, they've all put in recommendations after every election. In 2018, you know, the EU gave 23 recommendations for us to get out of this mess. Those recommendations are just the same as reforms. For us to ever enjoy democracy, we need to implement those. So whatever government, whatever, it will still be the same because they're coming in and they're going to inherit the same mess. And believe me, once somebody is in power, they will never reform themselves out. So my point is, let us reform the system now, such that whoever comes in will not be as difficult to remove if they prove to be incompetent as well, or they fail to deliver.
Well, I'll first point to Brett's plan, forming a government in exile. My comment to that is, go ahead. You should not let anybody stop you, and I don't think there's anybody who is stopping you doing it. Go ahead, form your government in exile. As for the fund raising and so forth, why not? Go ahead. But what has got to be appreciated here is that I do not personally see that government in exile organizing to have the democratic reforms implemented in the period between now and 2028. And as long as nothing is being done to address this myth that the opposition, as led by our friends, people like Chamisa, are coming up with strategies of winning rigged elections. As long as no effort is being made to educate the ordinary Zimbabweans that that is a lie, then we will see millions of them being conned into participating in those fraud elections again. And as long as millions participate in those fraud elections, as happened last year, SADC will find itself in the same position as it did last year, where as much as they condemned the process as flawed and illegal, they could not go one step further and deny ZANU-PF legitimacy. For two reasons. One, why did Zimbabweans themselves participate in their millions in a flawed process if they didn't believe that it was flawed? Two, if Zimbabweans participate in the flawed elections, it only emphasizes the point that Zimbabweans have learned nothing from the 2008 to 2013 GNU, where they failed to implement even one democratic reform. They failed to accept that the opposition, who were supposed to implement these reforms, are corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless. So if the same corrupt, incompetent, and utterly useless politicians are still in the opposition camp, what is the point of SADC denying ZANU-PF legitimacy? Utterly pointless. So the plan that Brett is talking about, I don't think it will work because he will not have the time to organize and stop and force ZANU-PF to implement any reforms, as he clearly acknowledges himself. And if nothing is done to address the people, to make sure that these people do not participate in these flawed elections, they will participate. So in my view, in conclusion, the solution is to educate the Zimbabwean populace so that they realize that the 2008 to 2013 was the golden opportunity for Zimbabwe to implement the democratic reforms and acknowledge that the MDC CCC leaders sold out. And that keeping on putting those as following those people, the same people who sold out, were proven to be corrupt and incompetent, and following them blindly is the most foolish thing that anyone can do. The solution going forward is educating the people that the most idiotic thing they can do now is to participate in another flawed elections, because all you'll be doing is giving ZANU-PF legitimacy. And after 44 years of rigged elections, it really is foolish to believe people can win rigged elections. That, in my view, is the way forward. Thanks very much, Ben. Do you want to give your conclusion? Your concluding remark?
Thank you. In conclusion, I would want to say, after 24 years with MDC, Triple C in, on the political arena, one can finally say they have failed to deliver a democratic Zimbabwe. I mean, let's face it, whatever they have told people have done. They have listened unconditionally, only to get their hopes dashed the very next day to hear that they have lost an election. Zimbabwe needs to wake up. There is absolutely no way of winning rigged elections. No ways. Let's admit the truth to say, the MDC, Triple C, including Chamisa, has failed to deliver a free Zimbabwe, a Zimbabwe that we want. And it's about time that we look for competent people that will deliver. And the only way to deliver is by reforming a broken system. And even SADC said the same thing. The EU said the same thing. It is just only us Zimbabweans that don't seem to see, what is right in front of us. I hope that we will learn and learn before 2028. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. So, as much as I agree that we need to implement reforms, I think it is important that we also acknowledge that no meaningful reforms can be implemented by ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF will never reform itself out of office. And the opposition that is there now, none of them are going to force ZANU-PF to implement any reforms. Indeed, Chamisa and company, their number one priority is to participate in 2028 elections to win as many of the Gravitrain seats they know ZANU-PF will be offering to entice the opposition to participate. So the way forward is people realizing that we cannot keep on participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy and perpetuate the dictatorship. The way forward is not to participate in the flawed elections. I don't think we'll get any reforms implemented. We know what those reforms are, but none of those reforms will be implemented now because neither ZANU nor MDC have the political will to implement any reforms. And to Brett and his friends, my advice is, I don't think your government in exile can force ZANU-PF to implement any meaningful reforms between now and 2028. And as for removing the regime by any means, I do not think a military solution is on the table, because we have not tried the peaceful solution. We cannot say democracy does not work in Zimbabwe when we have not tried. We have not had any democratic elections. when we failed to implement reforms, even when we did have the opportunity to implement reforms. What we need to do is to stop this cycle of participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. Thank you very much.